Good evening, everybody. It is once again Ted the Speed Learner, and I was watching a video by Perry Stone, and he went over way too much material, way too quickly, and I'm sitting here going, you missed a lot of stuff. You not only went over this stuff way too fast, but you missed a lot of stuff. You know what? I'm going to slow things down just a bit. I know that you people who have been watching me on a regular basis are learning a little bit faster, but even at that, you wouldn't have kept up with this guy. I barely did. Okay, so we're going to slow things down just a bit and tell you some of the things that he either didn't tell you or he glossed over. Okay. He was talking about the tabernacle. Okay, this is the same tabernacle that Moses set up. They had just left Egypt. They were going to wander 40 years in the wilderness. Of course, they didn't know they were going to wander 40 years in the wilderness, but they ended up wandering 40 years in the wilderness. Okay, so that's what this is all about. Okay, now the area of this tabernacle was in the shape of a rectangle, and this area was surrounded by 12 battalions. Okay, now these were military battalions, and what would happen is the men of each tribe would be gathered, and if they were healthy enough and qualified enough, they would become a part of the military part of each tribe. Okay, so there's where your 12 battalions come from. Now, why did they have the names that they did? Well, if you'll think back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now remember, Jacob, his name was changed to Israel. But it doesn't matter whether you call him Jacob or you call him Israel. What does matter is that he had 12 sons, and each one of those sons had names. And I'm sure you remember Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat. Okay, Joseph was one of the 12 sons. Okay, so if you learn all these names, you'll learn that the tribes were literally named after the 12 sons of Israel, or Jacob, whichever you prefer. Point is that these 12, now remember, you had 12 tribes of Israel. They're all named after the 12 sons of Jacob. Okay, and what they would do is they would gather the men that were qualified enough to fight in the military. Okay, because some guys were born real sick and they couldn't fight, but if they could fight, they were brought together. Okay, and what would happen is that those men would form a battalion. Okay, each tribe had a battalion. Now, what would happen is that they would combine 3 of those battalions and form a brigade. So, they had 1 brigade to the north, 1 brigade to the west, 1 brigade to the east, and 1 brigade to the south of the tabernacle. And remember, each brigade had 3 battalions. Okay, so there was actually 3 tribes that went to the north of the tabernacle. There were 3 tribes to the west of the tabernacle, 3 tribes to the east of the tabernacle, and 3 tribes to the south of the tabernacle. And these battalions were commanded by brigades. Okay, the North Brigade was the Brigade of Dan, and it was symbolized by the eagle. Okay, now they say, well, it was also symbolized by the serpent and all this other stuff. Okay, yes, it was, but one of the symbols of Dan was the eagle. This is going to be really important. The tribe of Judah, which was the one to the east, is symbolized by the lion. Okay, the brigade of Reuben, which was to the south, the brigade of Reuben to the south, was symbolized by man. Okay, and I believe it's Ephraim. I don't know if that's the way you pronounce the guy's name, but Ephraim, he was to the west. The brigade was to the west. Okay, and that brigade was the ox. Now, why is all this important? Okay. It's important because of what happened in the United States thousands of years later. Okay? When the United States first formed, the office of the President of the United States was symbolized by the eagle. That's right, folks. When they made the office of the President of the United States, it was symbolized by the eagle, instantaneously. Now, the symbol of our Congress is the lion, because they make the law. All right? Now then, here's something that is interesting. There was an obelisk built. It was started in 1848. It was completed in 1877. It was supposed to be in honor of George Washington. But here's the thing. Normally, obelisks are built through the religion of Nimrod and Tammuz, and I'm sure you've heard me talk about this before. There was this Baal worshiping going on years and years and years ago. What is interesting is that not only is there an obelisk in Washington, D.C., but there's also an obelisk in St. Peter's Square in Italy. Now, a lot of people say, well, Constantine was converted to Christianity. If that's so, why didn't Constantine get rid of the obelisk in St. Peter's Square? Remember, that obelisk, like so many others, were Baal worship. That is a pagan male fraternity. It is a male fertility symbol. Why is it in St. Peter's Square? I don't know. It shouldn't be. If Constantine truly was a Christian, it should have been knocked down and it should have been gotten rid of. And people should be telling the current Pope that obelisk should not be there, because that is a male fertility symbol. It is used for Baal worship, and it should not be in St. Peter's Square. It shouldn't be. Okay. Now then, we already know that the founding fathers, okay, had the symbol of the eagle for the president and had the symbol of the lion for Congress. Now, it's interesting that in 1914, a memorial was built to Abraham Lincoln. And this memorial was built to the west of the office of President of the United States. Congress, their buildings are to the east of the President of the United States. Okay? Now, what's even more interesting is that Warren G. Harding gave a speech at the dedication of the Lincoln Memorial in 1922. This was the same Warren G. Harding, as far as I remember, that was knighted as a member of the Ku Klux Klan in the White House. I think you find that very interesting. Now then, in 1938, the Jefferson Memorial was commissioned by the United States government, and it was completed in 1943. Guess where they located the Jefferson Memorial? This was the Thomas Jefferson Memorial. To the south of the office of the President of the United States. That's a fact. Okay? So, right now in the United States, if you look to the north, you find the President of the United States. If you look to the east, you find Congress, which is symbolized by the lion. If you look to the west, you find the Abraham Lincoln Memorial. Abraham Lincoln was a farmer. Okay, he came from a lineage of farmers. He later became a lawyer and later became President of the United States. But he started off as a farmer. So, his symbol is the ox. Because oxen, back in those days, and for hundreds of years, thousands of years, were used to plow fields. Now then, when you talk about the Jefferson Memorial, he is symbolized by the man. Do you see a pattern forming there? It wasn't a pattern that the U.S. government was trying to form. It's a pattern that God wanted for our United States. And there you go. So that's what Perry Stone was actually talking about, and hopefully you're getting these better details. The thing is that Perry Stone was trying to, I think he was trying to imply that the whole north, south, east, and west thing had been there since 1776, and that's just not true. But it was in God's design, despite the Congress and the President of the United States. That symbolism was designed by God himself. So, anyway, hopefully you understood all these details. If you have any questions, just leave them down in the comments below. I will tell you more in a future video. Stay tuned.